Well, good morning, good afternoon. This is Scott with ReadySquirrel.com. Today I'm going to be covering should you freeze rice before long-term storage. A little bit redundant. Today I did 3 really short articles. Basically, they're the same information, but I'm doing it for relevancy and for Google searches. So should you freeze rice before long-term storage? If you watch this video, you may not want to watch the one on beans and the one on wheat berries because it's redundant. It's the same information. I hope everybody had a great Christmas. I just did this video, so I feel like I'm repeating myself. But I hope everybody had a great Christmas. I had a good one. Son came home from college. Got to spend some really solid family time. Did a little bit of scuba diving. Had a really good 2 weeks. So back at it. Should you freeze rice before long-term storage? To freeze rice or not to freeze rice, that is the question. This month I am repackaging 200 pounds of white rice in oxygen-free food-grade buckets. Should I freeze the rice to kill weevil eggs, or is there a better way? There is definitely a better method of controlling bugs than freezing. Preppers should not freeze rice before long-term storage. Freezing kills bugs, eggs, and pupa, but this method is not as reliable as storage in an oxygen-free container. Freezing bulk rice takes a tremendous amount of time and increases moisture content, leading to mold growth, chemical oxidation, and spoilage. Using Mylar bags and food-grade pails with oxygen absorbers is a quicker, more effective method of processing rice for long-term storage than freezing. Freezing rice is not an effective way to kill bug eggs. Weevils are the main bug that invades rice and other whole grains. Most rice has bug eggs when you get it. You have to process rice to make sure eggs don't hatch and infest your food. But the problem with freezing is some types of weevil eggs can survive deep freezing temperatures. They may not be killed even if frozen. And you won't necessarily know what kind of weevil you have. So don't waste a lot of time in freezer space to maybe kill bug eggs. Weevils eat just about any dry whole food in your pantry, including whole grains, nuts, beans, corn, and cereal. And they will travel from other grains to rice. So this is something that you want to nip in the bud. If you're storing in Mylar bags and food-grade pails with oxygen absorbers, this isn't something you have to worry about because the eggs are going to be trapped in the bucket. Oxygen-free environment's going to kill them. Freezing rice increases moisture content. Moisture is debatably the number one enemy of long-term food storage, especially when it comes to grains like rice and wheat. When you store in your freezer, you combine your freezer's cold temperatures with air, which creates moisture or condensation when rice is removed from the freezer. There's no way around it. Avoid freezing uncooked rice. It may cause it to spoil quicker, basically. Warning, dried foods like rice, beans, and other whole grains must be stored with 10% or less moisture content in an oxygen-free container to avoid botulism and other foodborne bacteria. Oxygen-free containers are the best way to kill bugs. Storing rice in oxygen-free containers kills bugs, bug eggs, and pupa within 2 weeks, and it's quicker than freezing. Storing rice like this also gives the rice a 30-plus year shelf life. What prepper doesn't love that? Not to mention, storing rice this way also removes 2 other ways food spoils by limiting light and oxygen. If the rice is less than 10% moisture when sealed, you've taken care of the moisture issue. Now all you have to worry about is heat. Store your rice in a cool, dry location, and you're looking at rice that will store for decades. Why freeze your rice when you can drop a 2,000 cc oxygen absorber in an 18 by 24 Mylar bag, seal it, and forget about it? Down below is a link to the Ready Squirrel video on me actually packaging, the whole process of me packaging white rice in Mylar bags, food grade pails, 2,000 cc oxygen absorbers. So you can go over there and take a look at it. You can, if you're on YouTube, you can look it up. It's kind of sketchy, or you can just go to ReadySquirrel.com, find one of these 3 articles on rice. On freezing rice, beans, or wheat, and the link is in all 3 of those articles. Freezing rice takes time in freezer space. If you're doing long-term storage, you're probably processing large quantities of rice because you're buying in bulk to get good deals. let's say you bought a 50-pound bag of white rice at a big box store. How much rice can you fit in your freezer? So if you're like us, we actually do. I actually do have an old refrigerator out in my garage, but it's also just got the top freezer. So I basically have two half freezers, just the typical size refrigerator, and then I have two tops. I've got two kids. We've got frozen pizzas, frozen meat, frozen pizza nuggets, and you name it. I don't have a lot of room to be freezing 300 pounds of rice in a freezer. Let's put it that way. How much rice can you fit in your freezer? Let's say it's 10 pounds. So the first 10 pounds need to be in the freezer for 5 days if you follow suggested guidelines for killing bugs. You can look up the suggested guidelines for freezing, and you're going to get answers all over the map from 2, 3, 4 days up to 2 weeks. That's good. That's good information off of state extension ag websites. So you're going to have to make that determination. Some of the best articles I've seen actually talk about how when freezing the bug, you have to be tracking the actual life cycle of, say, the weevil to know when to freeze them and how to freeze them and how long to freeze them. No, we don't have the ability to do that. None of us are entomologists, and none of us have the time or the resources to, open a bug lab. So that's another reason I don't like freezing. Okay, so how much rice can you fit in your freezer? Let's say it's 10 pounds, so the first 10 pounds needs to be in the freezer for 5 days if you follow suggested guidelines for killing bugs. That means it will take you 5 weeks of freezer time to process a 50-pound bag of rice. No thanks. I'm going to pass on that. A better solution, use an 18 by 24 food-grade Mylar bag, pour the rice into the bag, drop a 2,000 cc oxygen absorber in the bag, seal the bag with a household iron, mark the package date, and rice on the bag, and you're done. Maybe it takes you 20 minutes. You could probably do 300 pounds of rice in 30 minutes, as long as you had the food-grade pails, the Mylar bags, and enough oxygen absorbers, and everything was prepped before you started packaging. You want to repackage rice, so don't freeze it. So what I mean by this is if you're doing long-term storage, you're not going to store rice, you're not going to store your dry goods in the food, in the packaging that you got from the store, whether it's a big box store or whether it's a grocery store. You're not going to leave your rice and your beans in plastic. You're going to want to put them in something that creates an oxygen-free environment if you're going for that maximum shelf life of 30 years. So you want to repackage rice, so don't freeze it. So you're going to repackage it anyway. Why not just repackage it? Leave rice in store packaging and you'll get a maximum shelf life of 5 years. Maybe this is good enough for you, but it won't keep bug eggs from hatching, moths or weevils from moving in. If you're prepping or interested in survival pantry, you want the 30-year shelf life, so repackaging is a must. Don't freeze rice, store it in food bags and buckets. Store rice with the perfect storage trifecta: Mylar bags, food-grade pails, and oxygen absorbers. Mylar bags provide a superior oxygen barrier, and they're not permeable to air or moisture. Better than any other DIY container except for maybe number 10 cans, but the cans are not readily available if you don't have LDS cannery close to you. No, I'm not LDS, but that's typically how people are canning in number 10 cans. They have access to an LDS cannery. If you actually have access to something else or other ideas regarding number 10 cans, let me know down below. But more than likely, the best, most available, easiest do-it-yourself long-term storage method is going to be Mylar bags in conjunction with a food-grade pail with a lid and oxygen absorbers. That's the best option. It's quick, it's fast. The only downside is it costs money. So it's not necessarily cheap. I guess it depends on how you look at it. The downside: Mylar bags are delicate, rodents can chew through them, and if you move them around, they rip easily and can get pinholing. I've heard of this pinholing happening more like if you put too many oxygen absorbers in there, and you get that where the bag just really sucks in. So yeah, I've been doing that. I'm going to have to rethink it. I've been putting 500 cc oxygen absorbers like in 1 gallon bags when it calls for 300. I'm actually considering whether or not I'm going to bump that down a little bit. Buckets are tough. Dealing with that trifecta, bags, buckets. Buckets are tough. Rodents don't usually chew through the buckets, though I have seen examples of it happening. They're stackable and they're easy to organize. The downside, buckets don't provide a great seal. Plastic is permeable to air, and the seal on pail lids is spotty. So the manufacturing process, the quality of the lids, not having a seal, around the lid properly. We're talking about trying to get a 30-year shelf life out of foods. If anything goes wrong in the whole process, you're not going to maximize that shelf life. So if you just go with buckets, again, I've seen an example of people just going with buckets. The food lasts a long time, maybe decades, and maybe not. Maybe they open the bucket and it's full of mold. It's full of weevils. Weevils will break down the rice or whatever dry good. They go poo in there. They lay more eggs. So you got this whole life cycle. It becomes a big eating outhouse for weevils. So for that reason, I like I like the idea of using Mylar bags with pails, but you can use just pails if you have a good enough seal. Oxygen absorbers and an airtight container are a must for long-term rice storage. If you have weevil eggs on your rice and you just put it in a bucket, there's a good chance you will come back a couple of years later to find a squirming mess of crawlies. I guess I just said that. Conclusion. Okay, people have been freezing rice for years before they store it for long-term storage, but it's not the best method, not even close. Imagine freezing 250 pounds of rice before storing it in a 5-gallon bucket. Why, I ask? Freezer space is limited, and it takes a ridiculous amount of time to get done what you could do in minutes. If you're storing minimum amounts of rice, it might be worth it if you want to save some money, but for long-term bulk storage, it's not practical and it poses possible challenges by creating higher moisture content. At one point in history, freezing was pretty much the only DIY option, but oxygen absorbers and Mylar bags changed the food storage game. If you plan to repackage rice for long-term storage, why not use oxygen absorbers, food-grade pails, and Mylar bags? Then freezing is an unnecessary step. Well, thanks for watching, guys. This is Scott with ReadySquirrel.com. Hit like, subscribe, make constructive comments or not. This is Scott with ReadySquirrel.com, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.